Live from Kakariko Village. Broadcast throughout the Retroverse, transmitted to the real world via a maze of wires connecting a Super Nintendo to a Wii, to a Wi-Fi network, and finally to the Internet. The Techno Funk Boy presents the Retro Zoo Super Show. Now here are your hosts, Kai and Steven. Kai, what are you doing?
I'm trying to get this website to work.
What is this website?
It's to download the Realm online.
Didn't that game die years ago?
I kind of thought so, but it looks like the realmserver.com is still up and running as a website. It's just every time I try to, if I click on free trial and it kicks me to the secure site, it times out on me. Let me look here. What's new? It actually has an update from 2014 on here. Let me see here. Some of these links are working, but not all of them. Some of these pages have at least a 2017 copyright date. But anything at least right now that's going to secure.realmserver.com is timing out.
Why are you trying to download a super old game?
Drum, do you even pay attention to the show? That's kind of what we do here. Let me try to go about this a different way. Nope.
It has contact information for the owners of the game.
Well, yeah, that is there, and if we had thought about it beforehand, I probably could have written them to find out more about the state of the game at this point. Let me see. I'm gonna try to do a little Google search here. Looks like as of there's some links here from 2016 that it was still going, and that would actually be the 20th anniversary. So what is the Realm Reawakened? What in the world is this? Okay, so this is from 2016, and it looks like someone is trying to reboot the Realm. Okay, there's a GoFundMe page. Let's see how this did.
Guy, this is a live program. We are wasting broadcast time.
I know. I really should have done this before. Okay. All right. So it looks like Stephen Nichols, who, as I understand it, was the designer of the Realm Online originally. Looks like he has a GoFundMe going to reboot the game. And let's see. So it says as of 20 months ago, he's still plugging away at the project. This is interesting. I'm kind of curious as if he's still going on this, and we might have to contact him on this.
Guy, what about the interview?
Well, that's what I mean. I'm going to try to, we'll probably need to reach out to some people. Maybe somebody would be interested to talk about the realm.
No, the interview we've already recorded.
Well, what interview?
The interview we recorded on Saturday.
That's Drum. That's not for today.
You said it was for today.
It's not for today.
You told me specifically that it was for today.
Drum, I hit the wrong button, okay?
What do you mean you hit the wrong button?
I hit the button to record my side of the conversation, but I did not record the other side of the conversation. So that is why we are discussing this topic today instead of the topic that we did the interview for.
Guy, that was my day off.
I understand it was your day off, Drum, but you're a robot and you just normally sit in the corner on Saturday.
I like that corner.
Drum, I'm sorry. I hit the wrong button. There's nothing I can do about it. We're trying to reschedule. And if we can, then that's going to be next week's topic. But today we are starting a series that we might interrupt for a week or two, but we're starting a larger series on this game, on a game that was developed by Sierra in 96 called The Realm, and basically a bunch of tie-ins. For kind of how the internet was used in those days for gaming and how this all kind of played out.
So you were going to talk about an old game for multiple episodes?
Drum, that's kind of what we do. We're a retro gaming podcast. That's kind of our job. I thought that we've kind of reached the point where I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a larger topic and draw in a lot of elements to that topic instead of just like having a random game or topic for each week. And if you could see behind the scenes over here, you would know just how random a lot of this stuff is that we're doing, and just kind of how last minute it is. But I thought we're 20 episodes in, and it'd be a good time to tackle something a little bit bigger, and so what we came down to is the Realm. Now, first of all, this is the Retro Zoo Super Show, and I'm your host, Kai, and we are joined by the producer, Drum, who you've also already heard this episode. This is a retro gaming podcast where we do focus on games from basically a lot of our childhoods, and back kind of when consoles were still fairly new in the first few generations, and PC gaming was just starting to take off, and in this case, the internet was really starting to be a force, and so that's one of the things I wanted to discuss today. And to do that, I want to take you back to 1995 and 1996. So this is when internet really started getting into people's homes on a mass scale. For those of us who were alive and aware at the time, you remember just getting getting these floppy disks from AOL like constantly. And I, for one, always loved getting the floppy disks because I could format them and use them for my own instead of buying new ones. And it annoyed me so much when they went to CD-ROMs because I couldn't do the same thing with those. And so, those just ended up getting thrown away. But I did put the floppy disk to very, very, very good use. And actually, now that I think about it, we kind of go full circle now because, a lot of times you'll go to like some kind of trade show or something, and somebody will give you a flash drive with with their logo and their software on it, and you can kind of do the same thing with those. And so we're kind of going full circle, But anyways, AOL and CompuServe were kind of the big deals at the time, but most plans with those were still paying by the minute, where you dialed up, used the phone lines to dial in, you got your email, you looked up whatever you needed to real quick and hit that disconnect button because it wasn't a huge charge per minute, but the very fact that you were being charged by minute like a long distance phone call, which is another thing that we've pretty much gotten rid of these days, it was a big deal. And so in 95, I had the internet, but we weren't doing a lot with it because we didn't want to stay on it that long. But in 96, I got my first, flat fee, infinite use account. And it was with this little company near Houston at the time called intertext.net. And if you go to that website now, it is available for it looks like $10,000. I'm sure the fact that I went on here to check on it is going to drive that up if anybody else is looking for it. But you can make an offer for a $5,000 minimum, and so there's that. But yeah, so that was a company nearby, and I remember every month paying $27.01, and I forgot exactly how that came out. It was like it may have been like $24.99 plus tax or something, but it came out to $27.01 a month, and still dial up. Of course, it'd be another year before I got a first DSL line. That one, by the way, didn't I couldn't get it set up to work properly, and so I ended up having going back to Intertext for a while. In 1996, a friend of mine introduced me to this online game that was at the time in the beta testing stage, called The Realm, and it was being developed by Sierra, which, if you remember back in the 90s, was just the PC outlet. They were at the time the largest software company in the world. They had just these massively huge titles. They were just selling like crazy. And around this time is when things started going downhill for the company. I don't know exactly when the footing was when The Realm hit, but Sierra was starting on its decline around this time. But they were beta testing this game, and because of this friend I got in on that, and for a few months before the official release in December of 1996, I was able to play this MMORPG, which was a term that I don't think had been invented by this point. Okay, no one called it that, but that's what this genre turned into, and so. This is a game with its release date in late 1996. It was a game that predated Ultima Online by nearly a year. It predated EverQuest by a couple of years, by I guess 2.5 years, about that. And so this was a very early and very important game to the genre. But as such, because it was so early, the game is actually designed for a dial-up connection instead of like a dedicated DSL line. And so first of all, we have 2D graphics. And in each, the screen doesn't scroll when you go, to the left or the right or top or the bottom of the screen, you enter a new screen. And so there's no, massive area where you wander around. You're on that screen. Now it's still not an overhead view. If you, it's still a side view, but it has, kind of an illusion of depth that you can go, kind of up or down, on kind of the ground field. And as you move back in that field, you get a little smaller. So it's not 3D, but it does have that kind of quality of depth to it. And so it's kind of cool. It's kind of playing off of, a lot of stuff that we were seeing in like other Sierra games at the time, like King's Quest, and using, kind of cartoony graphics that were fairly easy to render, that, were easy to display, and, could be very easily communicated over and a very slow internet connection. And so other things that were put in place to help that along is, the battle system is, it's like, I remember EverQuest that, first of all, it's a 3D world, but you just kind of you got in front of your enemy and you just kind of whacked away at it in front of everybody who might be standing there. But, in the realm, you went into a separate battle screen. And the battle was turn-based. And this was a absolute lifesaver when you're dealing with a 28.8 modem connection, because the lag, the lag on these things could be tremendous. And so if they had like a real-time battle system, you'd get lagged for, 30 seconds and you come back and your character's dead. Well, it's much, it's much more dial-up friendly when you have a turn-based system. In fact, what's really kind of hilarious is that when I'm sitting here looking at realmserver.com, this website that has been updated fairly recently, the classic massive multiplayer online role-playing game, dial-up friendly, basic system requirements. And so, as of at least the last time they updated this website, they were still advertising that this is not something that's going to tax your system. And that's hugely important in those days. So what this is coming out of as we're journeying toward the, like Ultima Online or EverQuest or World of Warcraft is, when we're dealing with such slow technology, the first games that came out that allowed for this multiplayer role-playing experience were called MUDs, multi-user dungeons, and they were text-based. And so, they were, very much in line with the early computer, games like Zork that were all text-based, and you the text described it to you, and you put in your commands as to what you wanted to do. And that eventually gave way to some graphical MUDs, and where at least the graphics were depicting the scene for you, even though most of the action happened in text. And so we were gradually becoming more and more sophisticated on the text part. And the Realm is this huge step in that process. But stuff like this, and this is what I really kind of wanted to talk about today, really started encouraging the use of the internet for gaming information, and for kind of a community element to things. And so for those of us who were around at the time, and I I use that very lightly because I happened to look up a strategy guide or walkthrough online just the other day, and I pulled up a text document to get that, and I kind of wonder if the young people these days, wonders like, why are these text documents? Why this format? Why, couldn't they get some screenshots and stuff in there? And this is really because back in the mid-90s, when a lot of us were building our first websites out of places like GeoCities and my, that intertext.net, you were also able to build a website off of, if you had a paid account through them, which of course I did. But GeoCities was the landing spot for so many of us because they offered these free websites, but it was very, very limited in the amount of data that you could put on it. And you had a memory cap that by today's standard would be remarkably low. And so, there was no putting movie clips on, right? And you were also fairly limited with the number of images you could do. And so, a lot of us were manipulating the size of our images to actually to shrink them or to make them smaller quality so that we could get more of them on our website. But a lot of these places that were like dedicated to like gaming strategy and stuff, when you are trying to like say, like do a walkthrough of Final Fantasy VII, okay, which is coming out at this time, you are putting down a lot of information. And the least memory intensive way for you to put that text on your website was actually in a text document that you made with Notepad. And so this kind of became the standard for longer files and that sort of thing. I remember, contributing to a kind of a fan site for a sitcom at the time. And, there were some scripts posted, and the scripts were all posted as a text document because it was an effort to save the memory. And so, we would all want like a book quality strategy guide to games and stuff, but it just wasn't practical, and so what you ended up doing was using this text document, and text had the added advantage of having very, strict formatting rules. And so you could use the symbols of the keyboard to draw out things. And so if you needed a little map to show where you're looking for something, you could draw it out with, you could use the line and the slash and the underscore and the, O for barrels and stuff like that. And so this is a very practical thing. And so ASCII art kind of started taking off, and ASCII art is using those, the formatting and the symbols to make an image out of letters from the keyboard, letters and symbols from the keyboard. And so, it kind of became, a cliche that if you downloaded a strategy guide for a game, the first thing would be somebody attempting to, make the title of the game into some elaborate ASCII art. And frankly, first of all, Notepad was not something that was ridiculously unfamiliar to us, because not many of us had programs that would design HTML pages, and those of us who did have it, okay, so again, this is a little bit of a throwback, but one of the big browsers at the time, before there was Chrome and before there was Firefox, was Netscape. And Netscape actually had, I remember it had built into it at the time a program to design web pages, but it was very, very limited. And so as soon as you started getting into a little bit like of deeper stuff, then you had to either spend some money or you had to learn to code by hand. And so most of us who were building websites in the 96 era were doing it with Notepad, where we would just write out the HTML code. And thankfully HTML code is not overly complicated, but we would type out the website and design it in our heads, and type it out and then load it into like Netscape or Internet Explorer and see how it looked. And this is something that this is a transition that I had to make because of the Realm. And okay, you knew I was going to get back to the topic, right? So, after the break, we are going to talk a little bit about how the Realm really developed, how a lot of us were using the internet and web pages, not just to dial into the game and play, but to actually build a community around it. And we will hit that up in just a minute. Hey Drum, did you know that the Techno Funk Boy isn't just a group of podcast hosts that live inside a Super Nintendo?
Really?
That's right, we're also a band.
Tell me more.
We're a retro gaming inspired band that plays covers of classic video game themes, original game music, and other music in the style of classic games.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and you can find our first full-length album on iTunes, Amazon, and CD Baby. It's called The Final Fantasy Mixes, and it's an EDM tribute to some of Uematsu's best musical themes. Check the episode notes for links or go to Techno Funk Boy to learn more.
Techno Funk Boy sounds like the greatest band that has ever existed.
I programmed him to say that.
I'm back.
All right, we are back. So, getting back to the Realm, and like I said, I want to do a few different episodes about the Realm. So I'm not going to talk a ton about the game itself today, but we will be getting into that a lot more. But one thing about the game that we've got to understand is, and those of you who remember EverQuest, you're going to remember that there wasn't a ton of plot in EverQuest. There were quests, and they were and most of them were kind of just fetch quests, where you collect or collectathons. You go collect the things. Go, I remember I tended to play paladins when I was in the 90s, and so I forgot the town in EverQuest, but my temple was there, and the first quest I tried to do was, hey, go bring this, bring water to all of the women serving the deity in this thingy, and so I did, and I found out one of them had gone, on a journey to this particular island, but I still wanted to bring the drink to her. And considerably later in my play, I actually arrived at that island, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is the thing. And I pulled up my quest log, and sure enough, and I found out that she had left there and gone further. And I'm like, okay, this is dumb. And so I don't think I actually ever finished a quest. Well, every quest, there wasn't a lot of plot. In the realm, there was even less. And, most of the time I played it, remember, I was in the beta group, and so there was even less. Once it launched, they did, add some plot elements and add a couple of quests, but it was considerably smaller than EverQuest, considerably smaller than, I think even Ultima Online. And there just wasn't, there wasn't a lot of story to it. And so most of us who were there so that we could play with our online friends. And so a lot of us, developed guilds and other groups to be part of. And so a lot of these guilds were running over to GeoCities and places like that to build their guild website. And again, these were, we had limited space available. They typically were not overly involved. One thing that I found very humorous. I'm actually going through my guild's final version of our website, and this is unfortunately not my favorite one. I told you that I got involved in this game because of a friend of mine, and he was actually much better at computers than I was. And I think he actually eventually made a career of computers. But I was considerably better at design than he was, and so I designed the website. The second to final one, and he one day updated it, and it was a joint account, so we both had access to it. But he one day he had some time. He completely updated it because he wanted to do some fancy stuff with some graphics and some animation and stuff. And for those of you who don't remember it, there was a lot of websites and web pages just dedicated to animated images of various animals or something like that the owner of the website just found humorous and entertaining. And the stuff wasn't designed very well, and it was very gaudy, but that's kind of where we were at the time. And so he totally updated the website that had a lot of cool features that were cutting edge at the time and bright colors, but it ended up not being very usable. Very user-friendly as far as navigating and getting information. But I'm looking at it now, and one thing that really cracks me up about, and this was not uncommon at the time, is that we had the members, a member list there with their email addresses. Now, I mean, nobody's probably going to find this website unless you're actually looking for it. But, we were in the middle of the game, sometimes spamming the website going, hey, join our guild. Here's our website. Here's, 50 different email addresses. And this was happening pretty regularly. So, to kind of fill out these websites, you kind of put a little bit about the guild, about your rules, about what you expect. You had a membership list, especially if you were one of the big ones, because you wanted, yes, we have a lot of power here, and a lot of them would start becoming a resource page for the game itself, and that's certainly what we were doing. And so, the game was not ridiculously big, at the time. I think, it did grow over time, but it wasn't overly large. And so we would put up detailed maps of everywhere. One thing that I did that I was pretty proud of was that we did a map of the two towns in the game. And in this image, and this was very advanced at the time. Not many people had this, but we would on the image of the map, we had it color coded, which was really good at the time. But if you went to one of the spaces, if you wanted to, you wanted to go check out the Wizard's Wash pub, which is on the west side of Leinster. I don't know how to pronounce that actually. Then you could click on that space, and it would pop up and it would tell you what they had on sale for how much. And so this was actually a feature that I actually worked really, really hard on, and no one else had at the time. I just saw a typo. Goodness. All right, I just clicked randomly on Plaza Eatery, and then on the little section on what they have there and stuff, I spell Plaza Plaze. That was probably there for months. Not joking. That was probably there for months, and no one noticed it. Ah, goodness. I had a lot of typos on my early websites. I'm very hesitant to look at actually technofunkboy.com to see how much is there. But in general, and so there a lot of these websites would start doing magic lists and an item list and stuff like that. And we actually did our best to kind of do everything, to kind of put everything in there. And so, like, I'm pulling up a map of the entire realm, and you can click on a section to find out what you're going to find there, what kind of enemies you're going to find there, what their levels are, and their hit points. And so what we're establishing in these years is kind of the start of these kind of dedicated gaming websites. And not that it certainly didn't start with the realm. And there are these, these strategy guide websites, with these text strategy guides and stuff. There already. And they were, and they had been established before this. But what we were seeing is the use of the internet to be kind of an additional place for gamers to hang out together. And I noticed, one thing that I noticed when I was digging through this, that honestly, it kind of surprised me, because, is that we had our own bulletin board through GeoCities. Of course, it's defunct now. And our own chat. And of course, these are gone. And so I don't even know how it was that, we found a way to set up a chat, a chat thing on a free website back in 1996, but apparently we did. And so this became a place for gamers to hang out and to communicate with one another, even outside of the game. And that's notable to me because this is an online game. You know, this information could have been provided in the context of the game itself. You know, I interacted with a group of people on this game daily for a long time and never met any of them in real life. But it's just remarkable to me that, you know, besides that, we gravitated instantly to the internet to become, you know, yet another place to put down ideas, to put down information. And so I'm really curious. I really don't have much memory of this bulletin board. I do remember times where we would be chatting outside the game. And a lot of that was in the beta testing time because they would be doing an update on it. And just the login would be shut down. You know, you couldn't get into the game because of this update. And so, you know, so we jumped on chat. And I didn't remember it being our own chat, but I do remember being in chat, at times doing that. So digging through more stuff. It's like we actually, I don't remember this. We used a significant amount of our website memory. And thankfully we did have a little bit more because we were running primarily off of that intertext.net website that did give us more space than GeoCities did. But we also set up, kind of sub-sites off the main site in GeoCities. And so we were trying to manipulate the memory a little bit that way. But this is one of my favorite parts. It's like, we had this whole section of the website that dedicated to, bugs in the game. That just looked funny. And I remember I would be cutting out as much of those images as possible to get the memory down. But even so, I found that, these images for the time were very large and took up a ton of memory on this. So the last thing I'm going to look at on this page is, websites of this time period always had a links page. And, you know, those have really dropped off. I don't really remember seeing a lot of these anymore ever. But I am pulling up our links page, and there's a link here for my old band, not the Techno Funk Boy, but the prior one, that of course is not there anymore. The realmserver.com, which is the site that we were looking at the beginning. Black Hat's realm page, which I described as all the info you could ever want, including cool maps. So we're probably pulling a ton of info on there. Jarrus realm page, more great info. The Great Realm Palace. And I'm looking at these, and several of them are GeoCities. Lita's realm. And I vaguely remember this one. This was kind of a humor list of, you've been played too much Realm win type jokes. And then Buckwheat's realm page, which I described as the funniest realm page around, with great info as well. And I wish that any of these still worked. That is unfortunately the huge disadvantage of online gaming, of MMORPGs, and about stuff like this in general, is that it ultimately is very fleeting. And, I think that's one of the reasons I gravitate towards like, cartridge, console gaming is that it doesn't change. And that's an advantage and that's a disadvantage. But the advantage is that, today I was watching Arcus on Twitch playing Legend of Zelda. And it's the same Legend of Zelda I have. And that's a very, very cool thing. But here it is also, about a little over 20 years since the Realm. And I have a lot of good memories of this place. I have a lot of good memories of making these websites, of learning how to do cool stuff on websites so that, I could set up that map with all the hyperlinks built in so that you can find out information. And when I uploaded that, I was so proud of that I had learned how to do that. And, stuff like that, I have a lot of really fond memories of. But that's one of those things that you just can't go back to because these websites are gone. The game is gone. The game's not, it doesn't appear to be there. Goodness, realmserver.com's still up, but, at least as far as we can tell here, you can't do anything with it. And so, I'm very interested to have found this, Realm Reawakened link today. And I want to be following this. I would, this is one of those things that if it succeeds, that I will be all over and having some fun with. And so, it's one of those things I'd really like, I'd like it to succeed. It's a common thread amongst retro gamers that I think a lot of us are very mistrustful of the modern style that, of updates and DLC and MMORPGs and stuff that changes because at some point it doesn't get supported anymore. At some point it slips through your fingers, and I'll give you a very good example. It's like, when I started playing Battlefront 2, and I don't mean the new Battlefront 2. Okay. I mean, the original Battlefront 2 for Xbox, not Xbox One, but like Xbox the first. I found out pretty quickly that, hey, there's some maps that you can download from online. And I hadn't, I'm constantly 2 generations behind on consoles. So this is not something that I'd done before, but it's like, oh, let me take a look, and hooked it up. But, Xbox wasn't supporting those servers anymore. And so those maps were gone. Now, it didn't really matter that much. That game is still amazing. And I certainly wished I had those maps, but I don't have to have those maps. But there's part of me as the retro gamer that just gets so nervous about that, I think we're looking for an experience that we can have and we can come back to for very possibly generations. And, in modern games, most of them, the online games, the ones that are getting constant updates and or DLC and will one day be no longer supported. Those games seem to me to have an expiration date on them, and we just don't know when that expiration date is. That's the thought process of somebody who's constantly 2 generations behind on consoles, because if I were caught up, then I would have years with these games, but I'm not. So that's one of the reasons I'm very hesitant to buy new games and that sort of thing. But that is a hang up that is particular to me. And I do know a lot of people who share it, but that's not everybody. And so, I'm not trying to convince you of this line of thought. Just, something for us to think about for those of us who are looking forward to playing, there's some of us who are looking forward to playing Super Mario Brothers for decades to come. And then there's some of us who are looking for, this year's big game, to have fun with this year's big game, and then to move on to next year's big game. And that's fine. That's one of the tenets of the show is that I don't want any of us to be harassing each other about the way we want to spend our free time. And so, in 10, 20 more years, I'll still be playing Super Mario Brothers. If you're into that, we'll hang out and play together, and somebody else will be on the newest edition of something else. And as long as we're both having fun and enjoying ourselves, then there's probably not a big problem in either one. So with that thought, I will let you go today. So next week, if we are able to redo our lost interview that I accidentally messed up, we will be delving into that. But otherwise, we will be getting back to the realm in next week, or in a couple of weeks, or in a few weeks, and do some other aspects of that game, and how it really related to everything else that was going on, with the internet and with gaming at the time. And so thank you so much. Our notes, for today, be at technofunkboy.com/20. That's the number 20 for episode 20. And we will put links up to realmserver.com and also to, everything I can find about the Realm Reawakened. And that way, if you are interested in that, then you may surely link to that, including the GoFundMe page, and possibly contribute to that to help see that realized. I appreciate your time, and I do hope that you have a great week, and we will see you next time.
The Retro Zoo Super Show is brought to you by the Techno Funk Boy. Follow us on Twitter at Techno Funk Boy, on Facebook at the Techno Funk Boy, and sign up for our email list at technofunkboy.com. Also look for us on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon for music. If you are so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast catcher. If you are not so inclined, you are obviously some sort of villain trying to conquer the world. Unowned music and gameplay clips are used for educational and critical purposes. Thank you for listening, keep gaming, and wish you have responsibilities that need to be done at this time.